In 1551, a decade after taking command of Kai province and consolidating his internal domain, Takeda Harunobu took a step that surprised his allies and intrigued his rivals. He publicly renounced his birth name and adopted the monastic name Shingen. The act was performed in a formal ordination ceremony as a lay monk of the Rinzai school of Zen, a tradition linked to silent contemplation, self-discipline, and philosophical wisdom. At first glance, it might have seemed a purely spiritual gesture, but those who knew Harunobu understood. Every move he made carried multiple meanings, and this one, in particular, was as much a personal reinvention as it was a political statement. The new name was not chosen at random. Shin means faith, trust, truth. Until then, it had been part of his family lineage. Now, it took on a higher, almost spiritual meaning. Gen, on the other hand, evokes mystery, depth, the hidden principle of things. It was a name laden with erudition, often associated with monks, sages, and figures of moral authority. Thus, Shingen became more than a name. It became a symbol. It was also a gesture of rupture. By becoming Shingen, the young leader formally distanced himself from the legacy of his father, Nobutora, whose brutality and imbalance still echoed in the collective memory of Kai. Where the father had been feared, Shingen would seek to be respected. Where Nobutora imposed, Shingen would persuade. By uniting the image of the warrior with that of the wise and spiritual man, Shingen approached the idealized figure of the Zen ruler, much like the ancient Ashikaga shoguns, who combined the sword and the brush, the battlefield and the tea room. By aligning himself with the Rinzai tradition, he not only cultivated his soul, but also claimed for himself a place in the lineage of medieval Japan's most refined leaders. The people, accustomed to their lord's stoic silence, saw the change as an elevation. The monks of the local temples, previously distant from the clan, began to frequent his court. And neighboring lords like Imagawa, Hojo, and Uesugi Kenshin realized that this young man from Kai was not just another general like so many others. He was now a symbol of order, depth, and vision. From that moment on, Kai ceased to be merely a militarily strong province and became a center of culture, strategy, and moral authority. And so, Shingen was born, not of blood, not of war, but of the decision to be something greater than both. But even before taking the name Shingen, he already saw the Japanese geopolitical board as a chess game of swords and alliances. His campaigns became more sophisticated, more surgical, more efficient. After consolidating his power in Kai, the leader of the Takeda clan turned his gaze north, the province of Shinano. Shinano was vast, mountainous, and fragmented, divided among countless local clans, each guarding its fortresses like a small kingdom. The region offered both opportunity and challenge. Taking Shinano would not be a single blow, but a calculated sequence of sieges, alliances, and ruptures. Shingen understood from the beginning that defeating these clans would require more than military force. It was necessary to divide the enemies, negotiate with the pragmatic, and crush the obstinate. One by one, the local lords would be forced to choose between vassalage and ruin. The first major target was the powerful Suwa clan, rulers of fertile lands and strategic positions. In 1542, after swift maneuvers, Shingen besieged and conquered Uehara Castle, forcing Lord Suwa Yorishige to surrender. Instead of humiliating him publicly, Shingen offered a conciliatory gesture. He took his daughter as a concubine, the young Koi-hime, who would later bear him a son, Takeda Katsuyori, the clan's heir. It was a gesture that blended political pragmatism with dynastic strategy. By linking the destinies of Takeda and Suwa, Shingen absorbed the territory and neutralized resentments. But not all clans would surrender with gestures of peace. Among the fiercest enemies were the Murakami, led by Murakami Yoshikiyo, a talented commander who offered determined resistance. In battles like the one at Toishi, Shingen's armies faced unexpected difficulties, suffering heavy losses. It was in this context that the discipline of the Takeda army shone, with its disciplined infantry corps, its well-trained cavalry, and the increasing use of firearms imported from the south. In 1550, Shingen took Katsurao Castle, and with it, he destabilized the Murakami axis of power. Yoshikiyo, defeated but not destroyed, would flee to seek external help, a move that would begin another chapter in Shingen's story, yet to come. Meanwhile, to the east, another clan yielded to the methodical force of Kai, the Ogasawara, lords of Ueda and the central region of Shinano. Although better known for their cultural tradition than for their military strength, the Ogasawara resisted with dignity. But in 1553, Fukashi Castle, the future Matsumoto, fell under the relentless siege of the Takeda. It was a symbolic blow. With the fall of the Ogasawara, Shingen sealed his dominion over the heart of Shinano. Between battles and marches, marital alliances and secret agreements also drew the map. Shingen did not hesitate to offer relatives as brides to potential allies or to welcome defeated nobles in exchange for loyalty. He was a leader who used the brush with the same skill with which he wielded the spear. By the end of the 1550s, Shinano, once a patchwork of independent lords, had become part of Takeda Shingen's body politic. It was more than a territorial victory. It was the construction of a new order in the interior of Japan. And at the center of this new domain stood the figure of a man who was at once daimyo, monk, commander, and strategist. Shingen was no longer just the Lord of Kai. He was now the master of the mountains. Conquering territories was only the beginning. Keeping those territories united, productive, and loyal was the true test of leadership. Takeda Shingen, more than an invincible general, proved to be a meticulous, reformist, and deeply conscious ruler of the people's needs. While his contemporaries contented themselves with the plunder of war, Shingen built institutions, laws, and systems, laying the foundations for a lasting domain. His administration was marked by a profound sense of order and functionality, even amid the turmoil of the Sengoku period. Upon taking control of Kai and Shinano, Shingen implemented a series of reforms that transformed the mountainous interior into a center of stability and prosperity. Among his most notable initiatives were fiscal reforms and irrigation systems. Shingen knew that water was power, and he invested heavily in irrigation projects like the Kanazuka and in a series of artificial dams, which guaranteed control over floods and the fertilization of the fields. This not only increased agricultural production, but also reduced dependence on rice imports, reinforcing the clan's self-sufficiency. For Shingen, land and justice were inseparable. He centralized the legal system with local courts and clear administrative codes, protecting peasants from abuse by samurai and officials. He created detailed records of taxes and holdings, distributing land more equitably among vassals and small landowners. His judicial decisions became known for their firmness and impartiality. It was possible for a peasant to have his complaint against a member of the nobility heard seriously. But Shingen's governance was not limited to bureaucracy. He understood the role of spirituality as an axis of social cohesion. His affiliation with the Rinzai Zen school was public and cultivated, reflected in ceremonies, retreats, and support for local temples. Furthermore, he maintained close relations with ascetics of the Shugendo tradition, who roamed the mountains of Kai and Shinano as guardians of morality and order. These religious figures helped to spread the image of Shingen as a blessed lord, close to the heavens and the people, balancing military authority with an almost sacred aura. Takeda Shingen was not just an efficient ruler or a brilliant strategist. He was a magnetic public figure who inspired loyalty, admiration, and fear. His charisma came from the rare combination of practical intelligence, self-control, and unwavering purpose. He lived with moderation, avoided unnecessary luxuries, and maintained an almost Spartan routine. He was known for being accessible to his vassals, but demanding. He did not tolerate incompetence, but knew how to recognize merit, even in men of modest origin. His relationship with his sons was austere but zealous, and with his wives and concubines, marked by respect. Shingen also understood the power of symbols. None was more powerful than the Takeda's war banner, where one could read in 4 ideograms the maxim that guided his life and his armies: wind, forest, fire, mountain. Inspired by Sun Tzu, the motto summarized his philosophy of war and governance: swift as the wind, to attack before the enemy realizes; silent as the forest, to advance with harmony and secrecy; fierce as fire, to strike with overwhelming force; immovable as a mountain, to hold a position with unshakable discipline. This motto was the mirror of his soul. Under Shingen's leadership, the Takeda clan was not just feared, it was respected, admired, and, in many circles, even revered. In the far reaches of his provinces, monks and peasants spoke of their lord with reverence, and even his enemies acknowledged, as long as Shingen was alive, Kai would not fall. But there was one man who did not fear the famous tiger of Kai. He was the Dragon of Echigo, the legendary warrior Uesugi Kenshin.